When I'm asked, what was your scariest investigation? There's one that stands out for its intensity and abundance of evidence. That case is Merrehope Mansion in Meridian, Mississippi. Besides airing solo on WJTV-12, the CBS affiliate in Jackson, Mississippi, the case was featured in our half-hour special Unexplained Haunts on Halloween night 2001. This special earned us a Southeast Regional Emmy, and the first segment was of Merrehope, which opened with TV gold.
The fear is real.
Something's on the roof.
I hear it. It's like something's walking on the roof.
This moment was unscripted, like nearly every moment of our episodes. Darren was going to do a stand-up, and since our photog, our videographer, Rob Ruffin, was elsewhere, I grabbed the other field camera to record the video. When we entered the upstairs room with Eugenia's painting, more about her later, the sound we heard above our heads was the cause of Darren's reaction. It was clearly footsteps on the gravel rooftop.
That can't be wrong, there's no way.
No, there's something on
We tried, but there was no debunking it. We knew Rob wasn't up there. No animal, which would have had to have been the size of a deer, could have been up there. And there was no means or reason for someone else to be up there at 4 a.m. Next, there was the collection of recordings captured by several cameras while we were not present in the mansion.
We recorded these sounds in 3 different rooms.
These cameras were unmanned. No one was in the mansion, yet these were knocks and taps near the microphone. Clearly, the sound of doors slamming was unmistakable. Lastly, there's the rude awakening.
Yes, that's what woke me up.
Darren, Rob, and I chose to take a nap downstairs. There was a couch and chairs, and I left a camera rolling on us. I recall awakening to Rob asking, "Did you hear that?" And Darren replying, "Yeah, that's what woke me up." At the time, I didn't recall hearing anything, and yet the recording sounds like someone is pounding on the walls. The last time I was on this property was 25 years ago. Would it seem the same? What would I remember? Would anyone there remember me? Kim Waters and Donna Owen brought me up to speed on all things Merrehope.
Merrehope is Meridian's most historic home, and probably the East Mississippi's most historic home. And people come and visit. They consider it a community home. It's not like it belongs to anyone. It belongs to the community. And people come and visit, and they may not have been here since they were a child, or it may be their first time, but everybody knows about Merrehope around here. And we love to have visitors come, and it's the only way that Merrehope can have their doors open for future generations is to have visitors come today.
It's a museum house, so there's lots of things to see. Then you can learn a lot about history, about architecture. People come for several different reasons. For, like I said, the history, the architecture, our trees of Christmas, the paranormal, just lots of things that they can come and learn about here. In 1859, Richard McLemore, one of the founders of Meridian, deeded his daughter, Jeriah, 160 acres, and she and her husband built a 3-room cottage back there. And that's how the house got started, as that cottage. Through the years, it's had numerous owners. Each of those owners have done different things. Some have done a lot more than others by coming in and adding on, some bedrooms. They've got children, they need more bedrooms, a double parlor, a dining room. And one interesting note is one of the owners, the Garys, I believe, they had owned it and they put in the ruby lights that you'll look at in just a minute in the front door. And we're thinking that's maybe one of the first security systems that happened. You can see out, but people can't see in. So those are really neat. That's a neat feature in the house, is those ruby red lights. It also changed the style of architecture each time that they added on to the house. So it's ended up now as a Greek revival home, and it's been Italianate, it's been neoclassical, so each owner also added on to that. I guess the house started, it looked like it does now in the late 1800s. So it took it to that point to look like it does now, with the 2-story, with the porch outside, the cantilever porch and those things. Then later in the 1920s, probably about 1915 to 1920, it got turned into boarding houses and apartments, which is a totally different thing. I guess that was a need here in Meridian with all the railroad and all the business that was going on, that was a need. And so there were several owners during then, but lots of people that were in and out of the house in the different apartments and stuff. It was boarded up with plywood to make the apartments and divide them up. And so that was kind of interesting when a group of ladies in 1968, I think it's pretty much abandoned by then, but they bought the house to have meetings. And when they started restoring it and taking down the plywood, they found all the beautiful columns and a lot of the features that you see here today, and none of that had been destroyed.
This year, 2025, was the 57th year for Trees of Christmas. And it had started the year after that it was purchased by the ladies that came in and saved it. And it has been the major fundraiser each year. It's never missed a year. I think every year it's a little different, and it's even more different than it was 10 years ago. That's not an accident. We want it to be different each year. So when somebody comes, they see something that they've never seen before.
The past 2 years we've been honored. We have been selected to be USA Today's top 10 historical holiday home tours. And we are just so excited because that's such an honor, not only for Merrehope, but for Meridian, for our county, for our state.
This past year, we completed the new roof, which was a major undertaking. So we were thrilled to have the new roof. We knew that had to be done first before we did any other work on the inside. And that was followed up with a new porch. And now we're ready for the next phase, and it was all funded by our Raise the Roof campaign, which was a community effort and a statewide effort.
Personally, I have not experienced anything. I have been here when someone did experience something. One day there was a child here who was asking about a child, and who is the little boy? And there were no other children here. And supposedly one of our ghosts is a child. So that kind of struck me because I was looking around thinking, oh, did somebody else sneak in? But no, they had not. We've had different people that have come to do this. I think you yourself have come and explored some different things. So I've been here when one of the a group came, and that was pretty interesting to watch them. There was a guy from here that works at the city that had told us about, he remembered being in the neighborhood and seeing a shadow through it in a window. He saw somebody in a window.
I've heard quite a few stories, not in-depth stories, but just small things that people who, I totally believe what they're saying. I have no explanation for it, but it's people that are reliable sources that have experienced different things here. I've never heard of anything being threatening or anything like that, but just aware of something else going on. One instance was filming here at night and trying to just put together a nighttime video, and clearly there was people walking around. When you're upstairs, you hear them downstairs. When you're downstairs, you hear them upstairs. And you have no explanation for it. That's the kind of things that I have heard most of. Now, when we ever post something like on our social media, there's going to be responses. It just immediately people come in with different experiences that they have had. We hope to interview some of those people and put some of those notes together and let each person decide for themselves what they believe and what they think it is. We don't necessarily have an explanation, but we do have experiences from other people.
Exploring this beautiful home again was a blessing. It was quiet, peaceful. Granted, I was there during a bright sunny day, but I couldn't help but think back to the last time I was within these walls and what they unexpectedly sounded like. As my visit was only for a couple of hours, this wasn't going to be even close to a full investigation. I got Michael and Ben on Google Meet so that we could conduct a hybrid investigation. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording when the cat ball placed at the end of the bed activated for no apparent reason.
How do you see? Okay, so was that me? Oh. That, I walked over here, I did this, I walked back. No. Okay, so we do have one reaction, which is interesting. So, we'll go ahead and, since I'm not hearing from Mike, I'm going to go ahead and get this recording. And that way, start recording. Everybody is ready. I don't know. You ready, Ben? Okay. So, anyone here? Thank you for allowing me to visit. My name is Rick. We've got Ben, who is in Maryland. As interesting as that is, he will be a voice that you're hearing. Kim and Donna are also over here. You're probably way more familiar with them than with us. My pleasure to be back here. Last time here was in 2000, so this is awesome to be back. There are a few little items, a few little balls that are located around here. If you touch, they can move, obviously, but they can light up and make fun colors if anybody wishes to touch those at any point. Ben is going to be also helping to see if anyone wishes to participate in having some questions answered relating to Merrehope, and maybe even yourself if you're willing to participate. And if not, that is perfectly okay. This is just a chance to just be able to chat. So I'm going to hand it over to Ben now to get things started. And yeah, we're just all having a conversation on this absolutely gorgeous afternoon.
So I don't know how much you all can see, but I have the rods in front of me. They are both pointing directly at the phone. There's a little bit of movement back and forth, but that's more my talking and hands shaking. So that's what you're seeing is typical movement. You see that, it doesn't mean that much about anything. Well, this is part of the experiment. I'm turning it, all use of the rods directly over to any spirits over there with Rick and the others in Mississippi. If there are any spirits there who can connect with the rods, please cross the rods real big in front of me. There's slight movement by the left rod trying to move over the right one is moving too, but the left one is definitely moving the most. But with that said, movement is not an X. I'll ask again. If there are any spirits with Rick and the others in Mississippi right now who can connect with the divining rods in my hand, please cross real big in front of me for yes. So what's interesting, again, it's subtle. I don't know if you all can see it. Both the left and the right rods are moving to where it looks like they would begin crossing. They're both pointing at the phone pretty intently. More so than before. They're like actually at an arrowhead like point, but they're not crossing. So I don't know if that means that there's something trying, but distance is an issue, or whether it's because my focus is on things over there. I have no idea what that means, but it is interesting because they're no longer pointing just straight. They're slanting like to a point right at that phone. And they're still doing that.
Okay, interesting. So Mike is here. So this might be a good time to do a little quick pause and reset then.
Okay, so I'll reset. And the minute I said reset, the rods went back to exactly what they were before, where they're just parallel, directly straight in front of me. The arrowhead point has now disappeared.
So it'll be intriguing to reset that then, basically, to see if that happens again. So, hi, Mikey. Can you hear me? You look.
What's up?
Oh, I was beginning to wonder if you're frozen there for a second. So, Mike, actually, with how it's, although I have my blur on, so you probably can't really see them. Donna and Kim.
Hello, Donna and Kim.
You snuck in, basically. Sorry, I was around the corner the whole time. So they are with Merrehope, and so they're basically observing. But I have extended the invitation that they are completely welcome to be able to participate. We just gotten started with Ben, just seeing if we can make a connection over here. I have also placed cat balls all throughout the room, and I'm at an angle that I can record anything that goes off. I have already tested them that there is nothing that will trigger them, even if I do move around, that's not going to happen, basically, and the others are too far away to encourage them. Ben, of course, knows nothing about Merrehope except for the fact that it's in Mississippi.
Deliberately didn't look it up after you sent me the name.
But just to also establish a baseline, how familiar with Merrehope are you, kind sir?
Just probably a little more than Ben.
Okay, so that's that just for our guests, basically. Then basically that's where everyone's at. Ben had just tried to make two connections, but what was interesting is instead of crossing the rods, they both were pointing like an arrowhead at the phone. So Ben, if you wanted to try to do that again to make a connection, or you take it away in that sense, since this is your part of the show.
Well, I'll do it again just so that Mike can see what was happening, and then I've already, as you were talking to Mike there, came up with an experiment I'd like to try just to get rid of one of the variables. So any spirits in Merrehope that are able to use the rods that I have in my hands here in Maryland, please go ahead and cross the rods real big in front of me if you can. we're doing that point thing again. And it's staying pretty static, pointing right at the phone there. All right, so I'm going to bring him back to neutral. And this time I just want to see. So, Mike, just so you can get caught up to speed, I propose 2 theories based on that. One theory is that there's something trying to connect but can't distance. I don't know why. Second one is it my focus on things in Mississippi that's causing the rods to point? So just to get that out of the way, I'm right now just going to channel all my thoughts to spirits in Mississippi that may or may not want to talk. I'm not asking them for anything. I'm just thinking.
So Ben, real quick. So if it's pointing at the phone and there's 3 of us on there, could it be not pointing at Mississippi and pointing over to me?
I mean, theoretically, but since you weren't here earlier and I was doing that to begin with.
Okay. Gotcha.
But then it could have been pointing to me.
Theoretically speaking, right now, Mike, you are the one that they're pointing at, but also that's exactly where they were pointing earlier when Rick was there. So I don't know how much to read into that, if at all. But valid. All right, so I am now just focusing on spirits in Merrehope, Mississippi. Very interesting there. I don't know if you all caught it. The right rod, without my body doing anything different, went wild. Like it went all the way out and then came back in. And yes, they're both arrowhead pointing at the phone, which for me confirms that that's my thinking, like an invitation towards that space. Now, the question now becomes, are they pointing to Mississippi or are they pointing to the device that I am looking at? Right? I don't know my cardinal directions based on where I'm at. Since they are pointing right at the phone, I would highly doubt Mississippi just happens to be in that area. But so it's clearly me, as far as I'm concerned at this point. They're focusing there because I'm focusing towards that. Now, is it pointing at the phone or is it pointing ethereally at the space on my phone? I have no idea. I don't even know how to test that. But it does seem self-evident to me that because I'm focusing there, all of a sudden the rods are focusing there. So just for shits and giggles, I'm going to turn my head and focus at my Jurassic Park book. Let's see if the rods will turn to the Jurassic Park book. And what do you know? That's what they're doing. So apparently where I'm channeling my focus is where the rods are channeling. Which, if we take this into a broader theological concept, let's say, when we're at a haunted place and I'm focusing on the spirits answering, that would be why they do what they do. That would also be, Rick, why the telepathic moment happened, because you were also theoretically focusing towards that. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm doing my best here, guys.
Hey, it's all right. We're in slightly uncharted territory for a test anyway.
So Rick, since neither of us, I guess, know anything about that space, is there known entities there? Like, is there a female, and is there a name to it, or a male, or a kid? So there are known.
Yes to all that.
Okay. And names too, right?
There are definitely 2 names. Beyond that, I'm not really sure. I know those. I was just hesitant on speaking those, although we'll obviously have to speak them if we're going to address and see if they wish to chat.
Let's first see if they come through, and if you can get them to say their name before you even tell us.
Yep. Okay.
Or if Ben can find out what that name is without knowing.
Awesome.
So you all still want me to try to get someone from Mississippi?
Well, I was about to say, you tell me on what you're feeling. Do we need to do that, or is this a Morgan situation, or?
We can try Morgan. I don't think we're picking anything up from Mississippi.
I guess the real question is can Morgan assist with anyone here?
So, Morgan, can you assist with our investigation over there in Mississippi? Okay, we got a big ol' yes there.
We need to explain as simply as to be who is Morgan to you, basically, for folks in the room.
Morgan is like a spirit guide, I guess, would be a colloquial term for it. Origins appear to be like Celtic in origin. Morgan, when I go to haunted places, can sometimes act as like a protector against evil. She can also help in the invitation of spirits. Also, just kind of generally helps guide how I think about things. Socrates called that the daemon that lived in his head, not to be confused with demon, but kind of like a muse of sorts. Carl Jung also talks a lot about those kinds of concepts. So it's not like an esoteric thing. There's philosophers and scientists throughout the ages who hypothesize such things. I just happen to have a name for mine.
Real quickly, like, how did you get hooked up with Morgan?
Friend of mine who actually bought me these is Wiccan. And he is very all about like the pagan pantheons and whatnot. And I did not believe in any of them up to the point that we're sitting in his car and he's like, "Hey, I'm talking to one of them." I go, "Yeah, all right, that's good for you." And then he handed the rods to me, and then they were talking. Like it was wild, but it made a believer out of me. So after that, I started just trying to learn more, and I was at a Ren fair, and there was this old psychic woman who was just doing readings, and she's the one who, without me saying anything, she goes, "Oh, you believe in the same stuff I do?" I'm like, okay. She says, "You have to learn more about the war goddess Morrigan in Celtic mythology." Kind of like a triune goddess, which I did not realize when she said. I don't even know if she knew that. But it's interesting, since I am very, very, very Christian, that the one goddess she told me to look up and get in tune with just happens to be a triune goddess, just like the Trinity of Christianity. Except they're three sisters, not a Father, Son, and Holy Spirit kind of thing. But it was interesting that that was what she led me to. And it sealed it even more that there was something there worth studying.
Wanted to at least have some context of, well, as we're saying this name, is like, well, who is Morgan? You know, I guess we'll start with a few basic questions then, and that would be, so Morgan, can you confirm? Obviously, as we've established, with crosses for yes and spread aparts for no's, but can you confirm that there are spirits here at Merrehope?
Big
Shock.
yeah.
A big fat yes. Would you be able to say how many that are here on a regular basis?
Does that mean it varies?
So what just happened is the rods kind of went boom, stopped, boom, stopped, boom, boom, and then boom. So it did that 5 times. And so my question to Morgan is that the number? 4 or 5? Is that your answer, that there's 4 or 5 spirits that visit regularly? Yes. Is that correct?
I would say that I know of 3 for certain, but it certainly could be more. There are 2 that I feel like most folks are very familiar with, and also with name. And then there are a few more sightings, basically. So that's where we could get into a bit of a unknown. So that's why I was curious, how many on a regular basis? Because I would, if I put this question out, I assume I know the answer. Would there be pop-ins, like folks that don't stay here on any regular basis?
Yes. Almost probably because I talked to her more openly this time than I ever have before. You probably noticed the big waving motions back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's very much a part of her personality. Very much get on with it. She's excited. She wants to go.
Okay. No mincing words.
Her answer was yes to there are transient ones, but also what I was kind of getting up here is that that's kind of a normal thing in most places with spirits.
Mm-hmm. Yep, makes sense. I guess my next curiosity, Morgan, would be, there are 2 entities that are well known, assuming you know who I'm thinking of. Would both of them be here right now? And by here, I just mean on the property.
Well, it was a very slow answer, unlike the others, but it did come in definitive yes.
Okay. Do either of them wish to speak right now? To have a conversation with us?
Question for you.
Mhm.
Is there to the left? So if me looking at you, to my left, I guess I would be your right.
Yep.
Is there anyone or anything over there?
To this direction?
Yes.
Absolutely nobody. There's a wall that's right here.
Okay.
Actually, there's a on the other side of the wall.
Getting the sense that there's female to that side. And I think that would be an answer to the question of yes, that person.
And would their first name start with a E? Looks like a no.
Yeah, it started off as a nothing, then went to a light no, then did reach out to my arms, which is no.
Okay, so then that could be somebody different then. Is the gentleman whose first name starts with an M, does he wish to have a conversation with us today?
That's a much more definitive no than the last one.
That's not terribly surprising either. And so we've established that there's at least someone who wishes to chat. So I guess if we could establish a name. So Morgan, can we walk through an exercise just to establish their first name?
Looks like she's willing to give it a shot.
Okay. So first letter, does it begin with an A, B, or C?
No.
D, E, or F?
No.
G, H, I?
No.
J, K, L?
No.
M, N, O?
No.
P, Q, R?
No.
Let's say, Mike, do you think you know what it is?
The letter S.
Yes.
So do you think you know what the name is then, Mike? or just that it began with S?
That's what first hit me was the letter S. I mean, like before it, well, right when you had mentioned, to start it. I don't know why I just got this, just hit me really hard. Is the name Sarah?
That's crazy that you say that, because that's the name that was popping into my head when he was still asking about E. that initial E. So yeah, Sarah, does that mean anything to anyone?
That does not. So I guess
It does.
Mhm.
It could.
It could. It certainly could. Morgan, is Sarah a teenager?
Not a teenager, but also that was a very light no. So I would guess maybe younger woman.
I would say 22 to 25.
Seems accurate, yeah.
Okay.
How else did she work in the house?
Morgan, did Sarah work at Merrehope?
Yes.
Okay.
Were there slaves there?
No, not slaves, but help.
Not slaves, but help.
Okay.
But I guess we should establish then that's a lot of waving.
That is a lot of waving. I have no idea what it means.
Oh.
Sometimes I can speculate because I'm getting a vibe. This one, I'm getting no vibes. It's just doing a thing.
Okay. Maybe let's establish a little bit more about Sarah then. So Morgan, was Sarah, was she white? Was she Caucasian?
Yes.
Okay. And so if we've established she is young, white, works here.
What year was that?
I think we probably have to establish then. Would that have, Morgan, was that in the 1800s, the late 1800s?
Does the 1870s make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. So then we're definitely talking about the 1870s?
Yes. So post-Civil War era.
Mm-hmm. Morgan, was Sarah, I mean, would she have been considered a maid?
No.
Would she have been considered a cook?
No.
Was she helping a family?
Yes, and I'm getting the sense it had something to do with kids. Small kids.
Was she a nanny?
That would be a more or less accurate way of describing it. I don't think nanny in the sense of like Mary Poppins, like what we're thinking, but worked with kids. Maybe even younger than that, like babies, a baby.
Was she a midwife? No.
No.
Was she a teacher?
No.
So was it with the Gary thing? The Garys?
Morgan, was she associated with the Gary family?
That's a yes, and I have no clarifying thoughts for that.
That's who lived here now. That's who owned the house.
So at that time, the Garys owned the house. So I think what would be very interesting, especially if we can go back and find any type of historical documents, is to find that during that time associated with the Garys, did they have a nanny, in essence, by the
Or
name of...
a wet nurse, maybe.
Okay.
Was she
Okay.
related to the family?
A yes, but a smaller yes. Distantly related, perhaps. Cousin, something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Definitely tied to very, very young kids. Very young. Like, again, baby comes to mind, toddler.
So, Morgan, does Sarah like to visit the children's room here?
That was a very odd yes, but it did go yes.
Is her last name Gary? Okay.
I think it might have been. Maybe she got married later in life.
Okay. Morgan, does Sarah have a favorite spot in the house? A favorite room?
No.
Morgan, does she visit frequently?
Yes.
Does she stay here?
That requires definition. You mean stay permanently or long durations?
Is she here most of the time?
Yes, with the clarification of much of the time.
Okay.
I don't know what the clarification distinction is there, but it seemed important.
Hey, Rick. In this house, was there ever a going back to the Civil War? Was there ever a battle or skirmish around there?
Sherman did come here during the Civil War.
Sherman, Civil War. Yes.
Ah, part of the March to the Atlantic, perhaps?
Wanted to burn Meridian.
He wanted to burn Meridian.
Oh, wow.
Because I just, there was some feeling about that, something related to that.
Did y'all have any?
That's does Sarah know Eugenia?
So, Morgan, does Sarah know Eugenia?
Yes, and kind of like not necessarily in life, like aware of each other there.
That never lived here.
Yeah, so
part of that family.
Yeah, so Eugenia never actually lived here, so that response would certainly be on task with that. Being aware of her, possibly. Yeah. Okay.
What relation was she to that family?
She was a daughter, but she wasn't born while they lived here in the house.
Okay.
So she may have known her later after they moved from here. I don't know.
Well, the answers that I'm getting is more that Sarah knows her in death, not like they knew each other in life.
So therefore, she's aware.
Aware of the spirits that are there at the house.
Did Sarah have a husband or a boyfriend that was killed in the Civil War? Okay. No.
That was a neither a yes nor a no. They're pointing directly in front of me.
Was she married to someone that wasn't killed in the Civil War?
No. Did Sarah have any relations or friends who died in the Civil War? Yes. Was she at the time with the Garys as a result of something that happened in the Civil War?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. That's cool. All right. So was that a yes?
That was a yes. And then I'm sorry, I was asking here but not saying out loud. I asked, was she with the Garys long enough to get married and kind of sent away? And the answer was yes. So she was like helping out and then got married and then was no longer there. So her time wasn't permanent there, which goes to earlier when we asked, is she what's her last name, Gary, and it was yeah, but then she got married.
Now, I was seeing an answer in front of you, or maybe that was responding and clarifying what you're saying, because I was going to slightly diverge, and I had a question for Morgan if she can actually hear it from me.
Rods crossed.
Is that crossing in front?
Yes, they crossed in front of me.
So now we have the question of, since I also knew the answer, or I assumed the answer, I was asking if she was aware, for Morgan, was Sarah aware of Marcus? I was expecting there to be a yes as well. So that's a little validation on the, shall we say, telepathy experiment.
So that's the male that starts with the M that you'd asked before.
And who doesn't want to talk to us, which I also was expecting.
So who is this, Marcus?
Marcus basically rented the room that we're in when the home was used as a boarding house. And he was he piano? What was
I don't know what instrument he played. He did play, I think he was a school teacher, but this was in probably like the 1960s, the early 1960s.
Yes, so we're in the
So
time
they know
frame
each other,
is
yeah.
the 60s, 1960s, when what this place was at that time, before it got abandoned for a period. But he had committed suicide in this room. And is known for stomping around and yeah.
Was it a hanging or shooting?
It was a shooting? Okay.
Is she aware of Edwin?
Oh. Morgan, is Sarah aware of Edwin?
Yes.
Okay. And Edwin is
A little boy. Goodness.
okay. I did not know the name associated. Okay.
They're having one big party.
What? So then that would be 3 names for sure. Now we have 4 with Sarah.
And Edwin passed as a child?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure that delights Sarah.
I was about to say.
Does Edwin visit, or is he still there?
Yes, and my vibe is for the still there part.
Okay.
Oh, he is still there.
Don't know if anyone asked anything, but it just went to yes.
Well, what's funny is in my head, I was basically wondering if Marcus still stomps around.
Well, there you go. So I'm uncomfortable with using because I am a Christian, I am uncomfortable with using the words God or goddess to describe what Morgan is.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever you would be comfortable with ascribing to her as far as a title, she's not a ghost and is able to be not necessarily, I wouldn't say omnipresent,
Sure.
but can be in multiple places at once, seemingly. Almost like if this world is a painting, then she can view the whole painting all at once, but not necessarily be in it or of it. Does that make any sense?
Well, it does. And I think what this experiment also, proves, as we've said before, you don't have to physically be in this location. Like, I don't have to physically be here to investigate Merrehope, because in essence, y'all are in Maryland and can investigate Merrehope. Is it more visually interesting that I can record and you can see it, smell it, and all of the tactile senses? Yes. But we don't have to physically be at those spots.
Yeah. And on the other side, there is no location.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And I think this experiment further explains that, especially she being a conduit is insulting to you, Morgan. Sorry, but you get my vibe. Basically, you're a connection to this. Morgan, would Sarah be interested in touching any of the cat balls in this room.
Just, I think, describe the cat balls, because I don't know if they know what cat balls are.
The silver, there's one that's right next to this laptop that we're all looking at, that the faces are on. It has little red dots, but they're little balls that are sitting on furniture. They all look alike.
Sorry, I'm distracted because she's pointing the rods to my left, and so I'm trying to ascertain what she's pointing at.
I was curious. If you're looking to your left, there's quite literally a cat ball that's next to the laptop. That is.
That's interesting, because she was actually pointing to the section of my library that's all my religious books, so my Qurans and my Bibles. So if that's where a cat ball is, that also makes more sense than me trying to figure out which of these books she's pointing at.
Well, that would also, if Sarah was on the balcony, curious what we were doing, that one would physically be closest to her as well.
Fair.
Did Morgan tell us earlier if there's someone there right now?
Yes. It was the young woman on the left, which, okay, there. Yeah, all right. I'm sorry. I'm stupid, okay? I thought you were pointing out the religious stuff. I was getting into it. My guess would be Sarah is somewhere over there.
So
Okay.
can Sarah manipulate one of the balls to light up?
And it's just a means of us being able to just see that you're here. If you can touch it, then it can roll. Obviously, it's a ball, but it also can light up with some pretty colors.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know this was a little short, but that's kind of what I expected it to be. But I also expected it to be interesting. And I believe it was.
I would say.
But that's because y'all make it interesting.
Thank
I
you.
didn't get the camera right. Where's my... Everything's a little slow. I'm stuttering.
I leave Merrehope as I did 25 years ago, with excitement and many questions. I'll have to return here and not wait so long to learn what other stories Eugenia, Marcus, and this grand mansion have to share. Reporting for Unexplained Cases, I'm Rick Garner.